bite-sized story time graphic. We also slightly modified our virtual library card project with Miller Creek School District. We had been on the verge of issuing physical cards, and then the shelter in place happened. What we did is we substituted the library barcode. We substituted the student ID for the library barcode so that the student could log on to their library account using their student ID. And we used I think the last four of their telephone number so that they could access our online resources. We built this library card drive on a model we used with San Rafael City Schools, which we continue to partner with to provide library cards for all students pre-K through 12th grade. We do it by them sharing the data for all their students, and then we dump that into the library catalog. Instead of having to do single applications and producing accounts, we can do that as a batch process, which is highly efficient. We have MOUs with both school districts to protect student privacy. As far as the emergency response goes, the city had a robust emergency response as part of the San Rafael City Emergency Operations Center. We practiced this before disaster, so we were prepared to pivot to an emergency response situation when the COVID disaster hit. All city workers are technically eligible to be disaster service workers. So the library in particular participated in the care and shelter part of the Emergency Operations Center under the operations section. Jamie Poirier helped with that, helping support people experiencing homelessness, as well as the Great Plates program, providing meals for older adults who are homebound. Jill Harris worked with the PIO, which is the Public Information Officer, working on press releases and citywide communications and social media. I worked in the logistics section, helping support alternative work assignments for people working virtually and coordinating supplies and mask donations. Speaking of mask donations, that was an element where we were able to employ additional staff as disaster service workers, receiving those mask donations in library book drops across the city. We received them at Pickleweed at downtown and a book drop in Terra Linda, washed them and made them available to people experiencing homelessness. We also had staff doing translation from English to Spanish, English to Vietnamese, and as well as translating documents and web content. We participated in a Calling Older Adults project where I think 6 staff total worked with our volunteer coordinator, Corey Bidoff, and Kate Collins, Neighbor to Neighbor initiative to check in on older adults. 90 and over was the first cohort we worked with, and 80 and over, 70 and over, just to check that they were doing okay and what they might need and were they getting the services they need. And then some of our staff continued to work on the census project, setting up phone banking and an information line to support people in undercounted areas of San Rafael filling out the census this year. We also did an interesting thing, giving out free books at the free lunch program at Valle Vista and Vallecito. These books had been donated from Copperfields, and we were slated to use them for summer reading, which didn't basically happen in a physical way this year. So we were able to put those in Ziploc bags and give them to families at the free summer at the meal distribution at Valle Vista and Vallecito. And that was highly popular. As well as all those things, there was kind of a resurgence of online staff development during this time. There were many free or low-cost trainings offered from libraries across the United States that were able to attend virtually. This was all related to COVID-19 and the changes that were happening in library operations and programming with the challenge of COVID-19. And it was generally the theme on that was developing a new normal. Then on June 3rd, we transitioned to curbside pickup. I just wanted to say a couple things about that. We offer curbside pickup at the downtown library from 10 to 4 Monday through Wednesday, 12 to 6 on Thursday, and then 10 to 4 on Friday and Saturday. At Pickleweed, we offer it 10 to 4 on Tuesday, 12 to 6 on Wednesday and Thursday, and 10 to 4 on Friday. And that's been very busy. The phones generally are ringing off the hook, more so at downtown during the 10 to 4 hours. We have been asking people to make appointments, wear a mask when they pick up the books. We accept return items and quarantine them for now it's 4 days before they're recirculated in the system to make sure that there's no transmission of a virus on the surface of a book. And now I'm ready for your comments and questions, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
I'm very impressed with all the that your staff is doing with the city and public services. I think it's a testament to their dedication to not only the objectives of the library, but the security and the well-being of the community.
Thank you, Peter.
I'll echo that. It's a very impressive response you've had. Obviously, you went into this well prepared, and looks like you've been able to execute on that. Although I'm sure you've been making a lot of stuff up as you go along. I'm curious how the uptake has been, the utilization of the services, and how that matches your expectations and plans.
The circulation numbers for our ebook platform went through the roof, and we're just trying to kind of keep devoting resources to that when we can. The use of online chat also increased very rapidly. We used to get a couple of chats, every couple of days, and now we get a steady stream of questions. Also, the numbers on the online programming are pretty significant because people are accessing our programs from all over America. So it's kind of like people are looking for any program. And curbside, it's been pretty steady. More people downtown are making appointments and coming by, and at Pickleweed we kind of iterated to allow more walk-up service. So, but we're doing more curbside than at sort of any library in the county, except for maybe Mill Valley and us are kind of neck and neck. But we offer more hours, and we're centrally located for returns. So we really killed it on taking returns, because other places in the county were not taking returns forever, and we kind of opened that floodgate early, and we bought like we have like 20 like garbage cans that it can be bulk returned and then quarantined. So yeah, does that answer your question?
How about your digital resources? Is that up significantly?
Yes.
I mean, that's one of the things that Parcel Tax D supports substantially. So
yes.
Are we getting?
And I just wanted to call attention to in the instructions that the suggested format is the chair would call on all of y'all sequentially to make sure everyone gets their kind of ability to kind of share. I just wanted to point that out to, but yeah, the digital resources. What?
Wake her up.
Yeah. Particularly, we were able to reinstate Canopy, which is our streaming movie service, and also Lynda.com. They gave us an extra couple months because of the fact that we were going to get a kind of refund from them. So the online learning tools and digital resources have been highly popular. And I think, the main focus, I think, is Hoopla, which is ebooks, audiobooks, and music, Canopy, and our Overdrive ebook platform. We're also not going to be doing magazines for the duration, so we're going to sort of transition that to digital, as those are kind of like something that people tend to kind of read on a lot, and yeah. So.
Thank you. Madam Chairman, I have another question.
Are we supposed to go to the next thing?
Well, unless you don't have anything to say, Chair Brinkerhoff, it's up to you to kind of, yeah, I mean, like invite the members to speak.
They all spoke already.
Do you have, is there anything else?
No. So we're
I think
going
if
on
we
to-
had, I'm sure there are other groups with many, many more members, and organizing between them is, I'm sure, much more important. But with three of us here,
Okay,
Let's keep it a little cat.
cool.
May I ask another question?
Sure.
You know, your weekly emails program updates is very impressive. How are you doing specifically with the virtual library programs? Are you getting a lot of attendance increase, or is it pretty flat?
I had trouble hearing, and specifically doing with the library.
The virtual programs? Spanish and English.
For our online story time and some of our, we converted some of our summer reading popular programs, like I think sort of like Mike the Magician, so someone like that. We had overwhelming response during the summer, and for our most popular Mommy and Me story time. You can see on Facebook that you can track the views. They're also, interestingly enough, a lot of our programs are accessed asynchronously. So even though they're done live, right, like this meeting's being recorded, and people can access it when you know, tomorrow or the next day. So we see that as an equally attractive benefit, that our online programming in the sort of analog in-person world, unless you're there in the room, you miss out. For our digital programming, and that's recorded and made accessible, like Facebook Live, that anyone can access at any time. And you know, it's like when that sort of cable like recording thing first happened, then it's the same experience no matter when you're able to get it. So yeah,
So,
the numbers have been good.
Would you say it's a 50% rise in partnership or you know, participation?
Well, okay, I would say for any particular program, the rise has been probably 50% or more, but aggregate, we're still behind the curve, because we generally have programs like Nobody's Business going on everywhere. And so the aggregate number has dropped, sadly enough. Yeah, but for specific high interest items, we see that as like kind of a awesomeness, but across the board, similar to circulation, we're doing curbside like crazy, but there's no way we can personally hand out as many books as just letting people come in and take them. Same with like programming, just having something on the lawn, you know, this, that, the other. Also, we have we have many open positions, so everyone's kind of taken up keeping just we're treading water a little bit here, getting some things happening. But yeah, aggregate, it's, I would say, a decrease. Got to be honest.
Is there any way to keep track of, or any way to count how many people attend a virtual program?
The Facebook, similar to views on YouTube, like when this goes up on YouTube, you can see who's viewed it. So if you view it for 5 seconds or something, it's a view. So it's a little more squishy, but yeah, it's sort of built in.
So do you have those numbers then somewhere?
Yeah, we're putting that together. With we're keeping stats, but given the fact that we're making it up as we go along, they're not as definite as we'd like them to be, but we have them. Yeah.
I need that information on the tax return for friends.
Yeah, I think Jinder and you were talking about that. So we got you. We got you covered.
Okay.
Cool.
So we're going to do.
So
update
we
now?
still don't have any attendees. So we can move on to item 4 if you'd like.
Where is Henry there?
Yeah, I'm here. So the next item 4, fiscal year 2021 library budget update. You can call that, Phyllis, and then I'll share my screen and do that.
Questions or just open?
I just say we're on number 4, something like that.
We're on number 4.
Okay, cool.
Budget update.
So there's a staff report in your packet on this, and the fiscal year 2021 library budget update is I'm going to explain how the sort of economic crisis that was caused by the shutdown and that affected the city affected the library and the city. So I'm going to share my screen here just a sec. Okay, can everyone see that? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool. And you can see me. Okay. So fiscal year 2021 library budget update. This report will explain the adopted library budget for the current fiscal year 2021, beginning on July 1st, 2020 and ending on June 30th. It's different than previous years due to COVID-19 and the financial impacts. And we expect those budget effects to have a lasting impact, i.e. beyond the 2021 fiscal year. Over the next 16 months, the city will experience reductions in revenue in the range of approximately $12 million. It was recommended that the city implement the following cost-cutting measures and develop a comprehensive COVID-19 economic recovery plan, which was attachment 1 in your packet, the CERP, C COVID Economic Recovery Plan, CERP. The first element was a hiring freeze for non-public safety employees. The library has 6 open positions, so we're kind of saving a ton of money for the general city by not hiring those people, and that's in effect across the board for non-public safety. That means not fire and not police. We had a voluntary retirement program, which meant that if you retired or said you were going to retire by X of a date, there was an incentive that you would receive if you had volunteered to retire. No one from library took that. We are currently experiencing, we will be experiencing starting in September 4th, I think is the first date, furloughs for non-public safety employees, which means everyone is getting a 5% pay cut and services will not be available for 13 days that we would normally be open. The library will be closed, mostly around the big holidays in the fall and like 1 or 2 extra weekends that will become like 3-day or 4-day weekends, which is a sort of normal way to respond to a budget crisis. Additional budget reductions are to the tune of almost 4.2 million. Additional one-time funds are being used and emergency reserves, and estimated is that all adds up to 12 million, hopefully, to kind of respond to that $12 million deficit, mainly from the lack of property tax revenues because all the businesses were closed due to the shelter in place. In addition, each department was asked to prepare 2.5%, 5%, and 10% reductions. Just to give you sort of some context, we did a 5% non-personnel reduction last year because there's sort of ongoing budget challenges in the city as a whole before the crisis. The library budget was reduced by the smallest amount, about $76,000, mostly probably because we have 6 open positions, which is a significant savings already. These reductions included travel and training, office supplies, contractual services, audiovisual materials, books, and publications. And just to be clear, this was reductions in our general fund budget, not in a parcel tax. When I talk about the $12 million deficit, that's for the general fund, of which the parcel tax is separate. As you may know, generally a fourth of our budget, a quarter of it, is from Measure D property tax, and then the city's general fund, which is sales tax, is the remaining 3/4 of about 3.1 million. We don't anticipate that at this lower cut that we will have to reduce services per se, but anything could happen overall, and we need to be flexible and able to sort of save money ongoing. There is a possible reduction in force scenario, i.e. layoffs, if things become less liquid. Let's say if the cuts that we have made don't sustain kind of a balanced budget or close to that. And in addition, the reduced operating hours and the curbside situation that we're currently in is due to the COVID crisis, shelter in place, and public health order, and not so much to the budget cuts. So that said, many of our staff who would have been doing sort of more mental work or doing a bit more physical work and sort of processing books and providing for curbside, because the temporary staff that we would rely on have not been hired back during the current budget crisis. We're only using regular hire, full-time and part-time benefited staff for the running of the library. So the next steps will depend upon the evolution of the COVID-19 pandemic. The current curbside services fall within what's allowed in the health guidelines. We've recently added a sort of a browsing function so you can look through the window at things you may not have thought about, and you can add those to your order. And as the county health department allows, the library will continue to explore additional ways of serving the public. Comments and questions. I think there's also a spreadsheet that I can bring up if that would be helpful.
I have a question.
Sure.
And I guess it should be on this attachment 2. It says that the reduced by 2.5% or 76,130. I don't see where that is on the sheet. When you say 76,000, from where? Or was this the original budget and they only cut it?
I got it right here. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share my screen right here.
Yay!
All right. Here we go. So can everyone see that? What we did was on the left, the budget lines, travel and conference, contract services, office supplies, books, audio, visual, those are all outlined in red. And then at the bottom, in the center, we totaled all that up. 6,000, 28,000, 80, 8,000 something, 21,000, 10,000, 3,000, and that all totals 76,130. So within that yellow part on the left, we zeroed out those budget lines or reduced them. For example, contract services was reduced by the amount of our Barbier security contract, or not contract, service. So everything that we took out of the general fund in the yellow portion is subtotaled in the middle at the bottom.
So
Speaking
that's
of that, who's next?
I don't know.
Speaking of that, Henry, on contract services, you were going to try to reduce our share on MarinNet, get that down to a more reasonable dollar amount?
Yes, we're still working on that. Though there are some potential savings, there's not a big way to move that needle unless, because most of that cost is for staffing at the consortial level. But the revolution I have planned there is still in its sort of preparatory stages. But yeah, like as far as bringing it down, yeah, we're still working. Sorry.
Go for it.
Okay, member Kellogg has raised his hand. Do you want to recognize him?
Oh,
Come on.
I'm curious what the impact on new library construction project is.
Oh, very good
Has it been
question.
abandoned, put on hold?
So there's good news there. We're still cleared to release our. We're working on a request for proposal for conceptual work on the new library community center. So we're still working on that and plan to get that released in the near future. So that has not obliterated that as a project, and that's one of the bright points of light within this dark time.
So is that B Street then?
There's a location in Albert Park that's being looked at, and then the council, I believe, wanted us to sort of compare that to existing plans that we had. So yes. But as far as the 2.5% reduction, there was some about 30,000 in materials budget, and then that getting rid of Barbier security, office supplies were reduced, and travel and conference since we're not really going anywhere. But we kind of came out with the sort of least amount of reductions, which is kind of the main thrust of this presentation. And generally, because of those open positions, we have fewer people to do the work that we need to do, but right now there's less work to do because of the COVID restrictions. Did I stop sharing my screen? Okay, good.
so I got a question. So how many full-time equivalents are you supporting?
Our normal complement is like 24 FTE, so I would say that's been reduced to around 18.
Okay.
So that's the people who are not, that's where we are now because we didn't hire anybody?
Right, and we had a full-time staff member leave to change careers during the shutdown. So you know, it's kind of like a fluid time with lots of change, but yeah, we're kind of, the depth of the team has been reduced.
Mean and lean.
It's ringing.
I have my hand back up again.
Oh,
You mentioned in your previous presentation that there's been quite a lot of usage from out of the area across the country of the online services you've made available. What's the budgetary impact of that? Is that something, because obviously people from New York, say, aren't contributing to our budget. Is there a concern about that?
a couple things. That was specifically anecdotally related to like a Facebook Live program, which has no budget impact really at all because it's kind of like freely accessible to all whenever. As far as ebook usage, currently you have to like live in San Rafael to actually use our ebook resources, which is somewhat of an issue with regards to universal borrowing for e-resources, which is kind of supposed to exist in the state of California, but doesn't in Marin. So like, for example, if I get a card in Berkeley, I don't have to live in Berkeley, but I can use their stuff. So around the Bay Area, typically you can use the electronic resources even if you don't live in the city, as long as you have a card. That doesn't extend beyond the borders of California. So what I was talking about was more like getting complaints from people who were trying to access maybe a Zoom link that ended up being available asynchronously, you know, as a recorded program, and they were like in New York or something. Just that the popularity expands, but as far as online programming, it's not so much of an issue. And currently for ebooks, we are probably the most restrictive county maybe in California with regards to that. So that's another thing it seems it's counterintuitive that you think we should be so restrictive to keep people out of our stuff to maximize our local resources. But when everyone else is sharing throughout the state, we come across as kind of non-collaborative and kind of elitist to kind of restrict our e-resources in that way where our physical books are available to anyone regardless. So California has this special library cooperation thing called universal borrowing, that anyone in California can get a card at any California library unless they otherwise prohibit that, to use those resources. And it's kind of like a sacred and awesome thing that our whole state is so collaborative. But we really don't have that for e-resources in Marin County, which is kind of like out of sync with the sort of greater Bay Area.
So is that something you're planning on, or is that up for the city council, or how do you decide to
all of that would be under the purview of the MarinNet Consortium board, of which I'm a member. So yeah, that's the Marin County Free Library, San Rafael, San Anselmo, Belvedere, Tiburon, Mill Valley, Sausalito, and Larkspur. And then Dominican and College of Marin are kind of sort of adjunct members of that.
So
yeah, it would be
look forward to full participation in that in the future, or not?
It would be a distinction without a difference if all of the libraries in Marin County got the same e-resources, which we do for our ebook platform. We participate communally in that. So if we were to sign on to the same set of e-resources for everyone, this problem would go away. The problem though is that some of our better funded libraries that have like 3 times the funding per capita would like to provide boutique resources just to their local community. And then like I, as a resident of San Rafael, could not access that. So it's more of like a sort of cultural and sort of logistical sort of convenience to be able to sort of discriminate against people that don't live in your community, which really doesn't happen outside of this county in the way that it's happening here. But yeah,
If New York Times reports on it, maybe there will be change.
well, yeah, could be.
Are you done? I'm calling on myself.
Yes.
Um,
Or no, yes. Good.
Going back to attachment 2, I don't know if you want to bring it up. It's on the number for the Friends of the Library is showing as 10,000 and below the line. See that 10,000 from the Friends.
Yeah, we actually we didn't know exactly what to expect from the Friends, and we put this together before we met with you, and that we should have updated that. So we wanted to underestimate rather than overestimate and make you feel kind of like
What did it
pressure
do?
or something. But yes, that's not an accurate number. Sorry.
23,710. And then I also have a question below there on the Measure D parcel tax fund balance. And it says as of 6/30/19.
Yes, one of the and this will be evident in my next presentation. I have one more slideshow for y'all. Because we were so underspent generally for the fiscal year, because we had a spending freeze both on Measure D parcel tax money and on general fund after March 16th, that fund balance increased by a more than usual amount.
160, almost 170,000.
Yeah. So the upside of that is, unlike a general fund where that would go to all kinds of other stuff, we retain that for the use of the library ongoing. So it doesn't immediately roll into this year's budget. As you may know, it goes into the fund balance. So yeah.
But it's not in the fund balance. I mean, when you get to exhibit, this is kind of backwards, but when you get to attachment 1, I think it is. You're on attachment 1, it shows the balance as of 6/30/20. And in that one, they've added the 170,000 is added. I'm trying to figure out if that was done on purpose, because we don't. If you look at attachment 1, the number down there is 373,073.
Right.
And that includes the 170,000.
Right. So the fund balance increased at the end of fiscal year 6/30/20.
Right.
Yeah.
And then in the next fiscal year, where does it go?
Well, that's a good question, because the fund balance and the way that it's spent is not clearly defined in the language of the measure. But I think our assumption is that it could be used for any Measure D, any uses that were allowed by Measure D. So this year you couldn't use it on building repairs because that's specifically disallowed, but the specific things that Measure D allows money to be spent upon, the fund balance could be used for those things.
Well, what I'm saying is, if the number shown here doesn't include the 170,000, so that can be spent for 2021. But what I'm asking is that somehow built into the parcel tax budget for 2021? That extra 170,000?
No, for the 2021 budget, this one here, we put this together before year ended, I think. And so it doesn't reflect that savings from Measure D, but it's not specifically like added into the next year's budget. The tradition had been to keep the fund balance sort of separate. But that would be a good idea, and we might look at a mid-year budget adjustment to do just that, but it hasn't been re-inputted into the
Well,
2021
it's
fiscal
just
year.
that it has to show up somewhere. I mean, it's not showing up as Measure D funds. It's not showing up on the footnote here. It's 203, which is what.
Yeah, that's sort of an informal footnote, and this, I think we put this together
Oh,
like
before you
right
did the other
before.
one?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, you did the 1920?
Yeah, pretty much, because that's the 1920s actually not completely closed yet. It's estimated, but yeah, that counterintuitively, this came out before that, and before that was like finalized. So yeah, you could add it to this, and it would reflect reality.
Okay, so it should be the 37307.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. I was just confused looking at these two. And,
Yes. Sorry. So it's not seeing anything else. Shall we move to the next thing? Or do I see a hand there?
See, Peter. Remember Lee, what do you want?
I think you might be frozen. No, you're good. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing now.
I guess he didn't have a question. This is frozen.
So, and there continues to be no public, so we're not gonna ask for public comment.
Yes, no attendees.
All right. Okay, and Chair Brinkerhoff, would you like to call the next item, number 5?
Number 5, review of fiscal year 1920.
Awesome. And for this one, I don't have a slideshow, but I'm going to pull up the spreadsheet, and then I'm going to kind of briefly go through the staff report. Here we go. All right. Here we go. Okay, sorry. Can you see that?
Yeah.
All right. So, as I mentioned earlier, the library budget is composed of the parcel tax budget, which is in the center in purple, then the general fund budget in yellow, and the Friends also contribute about 1% of our budget. Parcel tax is about a quarter, and general fund is about 75%. 74%. This year, this is pretty anomalous end of year budget, though it's estimated in that we're overall 80% expended because of the spending freeze. And this was also, we're underspent because of our open positions, multiple personnel vacancies. The parcel tax specifically ended up at 80.42% of budget. The parcel tax revenue, I said it was a quarter of the library's total operations. We had estimated that we'd bring in $1,082,648. The actual was $1,073,804, which was 99.1% 0.18% of the projected, which is kind of on the plus side. We were a little too ambitious last year, and there was a much greater space between those two numbers in the negative. We also spent less of our friends' money last fiscal year because we weren't able to do as much programming. We were about 80% of the 1% of the library's total operations the friends contribute. We only spent about 28,000 instead of 35, but we were able to repurpose some of that friends money, thank you friends, for our zip book program and for sponsoring our access to Zoom for online programming. But just because of the nature of the shutdown, we weren't able to spend as much as we would usually. And in the general fund, you'll see we're over in extra hire and gas, electricity, in extra hire because we had open positions, so we needed to use more temps. And then we're way underspent in building maintenance, office supplies, books, periodicals, travel and conference. In the parcel tax, because of the spending freeze, we're also underspent in programming, also books, periodicals, and digital branch resources. We are a little overspent in training and instruction because of the spending freeze. Some of our training bills that came in after the March 16th went to the line in training and instruction in the Measure D rather than the general fund. And in general, I think compared to maybe other libraries that don't have a parcel tax, we feel very fortunate that at least that we have a quarter of our budget that isn't affected directly by the steep decline in sales tax, but instead rests on the firm foundation of property tax. And for example, because the county library system is almost exclusively funded by property tax, they have experienced much less sort of volatility, quote unquote, or reductions than we have. So that is my overview. And now I'm open for questions. And if the chair wants to call on people sequentially, that would be awesome. Or you can do popcorn like you did before.
Just to let everybody know, you've been muted unless you're going to talk.
Oh, Phyllis is muted. She doesn't know. Were you saying something, Phyllis?
Well, I wanted to know if Greg has any comments, questions.
No, no comments or questions at this point.
You'll notice that as Phyllis pointed out, in this version, that 170 additional, 170 something has been added to the fund balance on the lower left. Also, we brought in more revenue than expected because of some library fines that got caught in the pipeline at Marinnet. So that's somewhat of a kind of benefit, though in general, we're looking at going away from daily fines.
I think Peter is trying to talk but is muted.
He's talking and he's muted.
So Peter, if you'd like to speak, all you need to do is unmute yourself.
I'm unmuted, I think. Thanks for the technical advice, Susan. Henry, you mentioned the professional development opportunities during this. How many of your staff have taken advantage of those?
I would say almost all of them have taken advantage of something throughout. That is due to the fact that we had at least one that was kind of like an all-day professional development opportunity where there was like about 4 or 5 programs throughout the day, sort of like a sort of free conference. And so all the library staff were working completely virtually at that time. And I believe everyone attended at least one of those sessions. In addition, they've made the library directors work to kind of attend sessions with the state librarian about like, how do we respond to this? So at many different levels and different strata, like for children's services, services for older adults, there have been offerings that have really it's been very beneficial to staff to have them, because in the virtual format, we're helping people online, we're doing our collection of work, we're talking to each other, we're planning, but really having professional development stuff available really kind of helps kind of balance out the day in kind of keeping busy virtually. But that's an interesting question in that we don't really keep stats about that in the most formal way we do in terms of circulation, people in the building. But we did record what everyone was doing every minute of the day throughout, so I could sort of data mine that for that information, and I think I probably will. Thank you. You're still muted. Yeah, you're totally muted, Peter.
Is he talking?
I think so, yeah.
I'll just babble on.
There you go. There you go.
Okay, well, keeping those statistics is always good when it comes down to advancement for your staff people.
Yeah, I mean, at the level of your sort of performance evaluation, normally all that is listed on each employee's performance evaluation, which is confidential. But you know, they list their professional development, their supervisor reviews it and makes a plan for the next year. So it's kind of there, but kind of hidden.
Okay, thanks.
Can I talk?
Yeah.
So if we're done, do we need to schedule another meeting, and I guess we have to work on a year-end report.
Yes.
There's not much to say, right?
Right. Because this is estimated, we will have more audited numbers probably within the next month or so. I'm not exactly sure. But yes, I believe a meeting to plan the report and such would be the next thing. I think we need to remain flexible as to the timing, if that's okay.
Okay.
Also, I believe the plan is to fill the vacant position on the board, which had been in the works before the shutdown. So I will follow up with the city clerk on that. I'm not sure if you need to make any decisions right now, but how about if we communicate to you via SurveyMonkey or something? Wait, something's coming up here. Someone's in the chat. Stop screen share. Okay. Sorry. What our next date would be. Otherwise, we can all look at our calendars. I think that our general plan has been a little upset by the pandemic. So we could meet once and then meet again like in November, or we could just meet one more time and do the report and meet one more time to kind of vet it.
We do need to have the final report won't be out for a little while though, right? And then I guess, although we have no idea, I mean, there's no way we can insist on our percentage, but we would need to know what the percentage of the library that was spent.
I knew you would ask that. So that will be available forthcoming from finance, but it's not available yet. So yeah.
But that's happened when the start of Measure C went into place. We were aware that it could not be met. And obviously this is another one of those cases.
Yeah, I was thinking that whole thing would be upset in a major way by this budget downturn. But I was unable to really get my head around whether the percentage would go up or down. So.
Because the whole total went down.
Right. And the library's portion didn't go down proportionally to the total. It actually stayed higher. So from a math standpoint, that would mean the percentage would be higher.
Well,
I think.
If our drop was not as big, but I mean, we were quite a bit below budget.
Yeah.
So I don't know, we just have to wait and see what the numbers are.
Yes, that sounds like a great plan.
Okay, so when should we meet again? Or do you want to just send out a thing and?
Yeah, I would prefer to, because of a number of different, we've had some scheduling problems with this Zoom account on the same day as some other thing happening, and it's become quite complex. So just in order, if we say a date, we might have to change it. So let's let me and Jinder contact everyone and kind of find the right date through Doodle or something like that, and then we can move from there if that's acceptable.
There's somebody behind member Kelly.
Yeah, is that a Labradoodle?
Fine with me. That's my golden doodle.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's
Cool.
in and out. The other one was scratching at the door when it was closed.
Cool. So thanks for the great meeting.
Okay, we're done then.
Susan, do you have anything?
No, I'm fine. Everything's
Okay.
good.
Let's hear it for Jinder for being facilitator. He's been doing a great job.
Hey, Jinder.
Thanks, Jinder. It's great to be back with some semblance of normal order.
Okay, so are will the chair adjourn the meeting?
The meeting is adjourned and it is
Okay.
7:18.
Cool. And again, this recording will be available online, in the next couple days.
Okay. Till next time.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Right.